You can always tell when a streak's going to come to an end. You win a couple of games, you probably shouldn't.
There are teams out there that could use that quality of playoff goaltending. All right, Ray, you ready to do this?
Yep, let's go.
Powered by Rev Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 7 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. The Tim's NHL Hockey Challenge is back post-Olympics in the Tim Hortons app with a chance to win daily and monthly prizes, picking players who you think will score. Plus, there's a chance to win a new Hyundai Tucson as part of the grand prize at the end of the year. Canadians, you can also try to keep a 7-day streak alive and win free coffee or tea for a week. Check it out, timhortons.ca. for a full list of prizes. Ray Ferraro is joining us on the podcast as he always does. For all those who follow us on the YouTube channel, where are you situated this morning, Thursday morning, Raymond?
I am in my hotel. Madison Square Garden is right there.
Oh,
and I've got
nice.
A couple of games in at the Garden this week. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh Thursday, Saturday, and then out on the island on Sunday. And not very often the games get packed in like this, so it's kind of a good way to start. Although I got to catch up because, like everybody else, I mean, didn't it feel wild last night, Dregs? Just
it was
all
wild.
Of a sudden, there's like multiple games everywhere, and you're trying to keep touch. And everybody's got pretty much like 15 to 17 games this month. It's gonna be busy, man.
I was out of my routine. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously, I'm watching, Tampa Bay and Toronto because we're doing Toronto and Florida as part of our regional coverage tonight. But then I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second. I can flip over here. There's a Devils game I wanted to catch a part of, and then later in the night, you had the Oilers and the Ducks, and the Kings are playing. I wanted to see a bit of Artemi Panarin. It took me about a period before I went, hold on a second. I forgot about that game. And, you swing over and you watch a couple of minutes. So I guess that's the routine we have to get back into now.
Yep. It's back to it. And it's, and I know you people on the East Coast go to bed, but some of the most crazy stuff was in the last hour of the night. It was wild.
All right, we'll get to some of that as part of our headlines in just a moment. You have a minute for some story time here?
Well, you're going to tell us anyway, so
but I think
give the listeners something.
You'll appreciate this because it relates to the story from about 20 years ago when the world found out, and I include myself in the world because I didn't know that Dave Nonis and I are related. We're cousins, right? And this goes back. I mean, it's bizarre that we wouldn't know this, and I've seen pictures of Dave's mom sitting with my mom at a big family dinner table, like 30, 40 years ago, whatever. All right. So a bit bizarre, but anyway, it is what it is. So my mom, as we're recording the podcast, calls me on Tuesday morning, and I can't answer because we're recording the pod, but my mom she's 86. She never calls me. I have to call her. So I call her back because I'm a bit worried right after the pod, and she's so excited. And she goes, did you know that we're related to a Canadian Olympian? And I'm like, pardon? On the women's hockey team, silver medalist, the Canadian Olympian, Julia Gosling. I'm like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. So anyway, she quickly explains the lineage and this connection and this connection. And I'm like, all right, it sounds a little far-fetched, so I'm going to have to do a bit of research here. So anyway, my mom's father, my grandfather, Jean Langelet, okay, and Julia Gosling's great-grandmother, her brother and sister. Brother and sister. So Julia's grandmother is my second cousin, which, by the way, Julia confirmed to me on Wednesday. So I sought her out like a dog on a bone. I got her cell number, and then this creepy 58-year-old man, hockey insider, reached out to this 24-year-old hockey player to say, hey, this is going to be weird, but just follow along with me. Anyway, there you go. It's an interesting story.
You know what that's?
I bet you didn't know I had that sort of bloodline, huh?
No, geez, it's amazing. It's amazing what you find out. And it's, this sounds very much like before my Nona passed away, um, she would say, you relate to this guy. And I'd be like, how am I related to this person, Nona? And she would
Yeah.
tell some convoluted Italian
Oh yeah.
connection of the cousin, of the brother, and and I'd just
Yeah.
be totally baffled. But it all sort of kind of made sense if you,
Yeah.
like you say, if you get through it. So yeah, well, there you go.
Well,
Congratulations to your family on the silver medal.
yeah, not so great for Julia to be related to a guy like me, but I do need somebody who
Yeah.
listens to the podcast to explain the breakdown of how this plays out. Because if I'm second cousin to Julia's grandmother, right, then
Okay.
it does it drop to, okay, her mom would be my third cousin, therefore Julia Gosling is my. I don't think it drops like that. I think there's a something removed and all of that. But we'll get somebody who listens to the podcast. We'll figure it
I'll
out.
tell you
And,
who. I'll tell you who won't help you with that. That would be me.
you?
Because no chance. I get no chance.
No. All right. Okay, a lot to get to, even though, just one night of NHL hockey, but as we said right off the opening, it's going to intensify quickly here. So let's do that in the headlines, brought to us by the Canadian Brew House. With 48 locations across Canada, there are more than 50 TVs at each location. They've got the largest rooftop patios in Canada, and when the sun is shining, there is no better patio. Full stop. Canadian Brew House is the place to watch your favorite team battle it out. Find a location near you at thecanadianbrewhouse.com. Well, of course, we have to start with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews, playing the most of any Maple Leafs player in that game against Tampa Bay Lightning, earned an assist in a loss to Tampa Bay. It was a bit of a weird game, Ray. It was 3-0 late in favor of the Lightning. Would have been 4-0, but then Jake Guentzel hits the post on the empty net. Like, how far away was he from the empty net? Like 5 feet?
Maybe 10.
Maybe a bit.
Maybe 10. Yeah, but still, I mean, there was nobody around, and he clanks it off the post.
He was pissed too, right? Because Toronto then rallies scores. So was he mad that he did that? And obviously, I mean, the game looked to be in hand. Or was he mad because he felt like it cost Andrei Vasilevsky the shutout? Because Toronto quickly scored 2, as soon as he missed that empty net.
Well, I think he's probably embarrassed, and he can't, like, honestly, if you watch it, and it's, man, it's Jake Guentzel. He gets 35 goals a year. He's a really, really great player. And I couldn't even.
No.
Was a bouncing, spinning, like, who cares? Anyway, he healed it. It hit the net, hit the post, and then Toronto scores to make it 3-1. So now you're like, oh, hey, maybe there's a chance. But then Braden Point scores again, by the way, 2 goals in his first game back. And
he was
so it's
flying.
4-1. So he looked great. And you know what? Here's something. The 2 days before the season shut down, I had a game in Tampa. And in the morning skate, I was down at the rink, and Point walks by going out to the ice. And I'm like, where are you going? And he goes, oh, I'm going for a little twirl. And so they announced later that day that he was not going to the Olympics. So he was that close. Like, he was really close. So the 3-week break, he probably got to skate a little bit, and or a lot. And but he looked great. But anyway, it's 3-1. Point makes it 4-1, and then Matthew Nye scored. Like, I think Vasilevsky fell asleep by this time.
What was that?
And that looked like a peewee goalie, right? That wasn't paying attention, and it went right through his legs from the blue line. And so now it's 4-2. But Toronto was not in that game at any point.
No.
And you said at the top, Dregs, that like, teams are still figuring out where they are, but they're not. Like, Toronto should not be trying to figure out where they are.
Yeah,
I don't think. I mean, like, I think we've seen enough of the picture to say they're at best a team that squeaks their way in. But do you really want to trade any asset to try and do that? I don't know. I know it must be hard to punt on a season with 20 games left, but to me, it just seems like the this time,
Yeah.
it seems like the right time.
So that takes us to the letter from Keith Pelley, the president of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. But Brad Treliving insists that they've had a plan in place for a considerable amount of time, not days, but weeks, maybe longer than that, as the direction they're going to go, regardless of where they're situated on the 6th of March. And I kind of get it, but I also don't. In that, all right, if you're not going to chase extensions because you don't want to overpay whatever you've slotted Bobby McMahon and Scott Laughton at, I can appreciate that. And maybe based on what we saw last night, and the Leafs are in Florida here Thursday night, we'll see what happens there. They've got a good read on what they are and what they are not. So it's probably unlikely to expect that the Leafs are going to claw back in the days leading up to the deadline on March 6th. So maybe it'll be easier to cut bait and trade McMahon, Laughton, and some others. But wouldn't you? What if you do? Like, what do you know? I like Treliving Company push back the idea. Look, we're not watching what's going to happen the next 2-3 games. We've already made our decision on the path we're going to take. I think that what he's saying is we need somebody to step up and make a fair offer for those players. Make us an offer on Bobby McMahon that is a worthwhile offer, and we can move on him, and we'll do that. That's how I read it.
When I hear media start talking about, well, they have to move this along, they have to get going. Well, no, they don't, because nobody wants to make a deal before the deadline or before the Olympic break. Nobody was in a position to say, it seems like, yeah, okay, I'll move my players, or I'm ready to move my players. Why don't you take them now? Maybe the team that's eventually going to make the deal isn't ready to make it yet. Maybe they don't want to pay players through the Olympic break. So maybe they didn't want to do that. Now, it wouldn't be much of a hurdle for McMahon, who's on a really, really manageable contract, but maybe teams didn't want to do that. Maybe the owner said, no, I don't want to chew that salary. Wait till March. And so I understand the plan that might be there, but I guess the part of this you've got to be careful of is, if you're holding on, for example, at this point to Scott Laughton, and last year you traded a first round pick for him, and you want to recoup as much of that as you can. Well, I wouldn't think you're getting a first round pick for Scott Laughton. But what if, in the meantime, teams get tired of waiting for Scott Laughton, teams that might be interested, and they pivot and they trade for Teddy Bluger or another fourth line center.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they're not quite as good as Laughton, but they're like, you know what? We can't wait anymore, because if we don't get Laughton and somebody else trades for Bluger, for example, now we got nobody. And so it's this, they're all trying to wait until the best moment for the best leverage. But sometimes, well, not sometimes, all times, you've got to be careful that you get left holding the bag.
Yeah. Where are you with these letters that are sent out by clubs to their season ticket holders? You know, Pelley acknowledged the ups and downs of the season, the vital role that the fans play in building championship teams. He blamed injuries for where the Leafs are, wouldn't reveal any strategic planning, all of that. I mean, we're reminded, of course, of what the New York Rangers have done 2 or 3 times. I had a season ticket holder, because I'm a partial season ticket holder, say to me, it seemed more like an apology for a crappy year. that was a season ticket holder's takeaway.
Well, I don't think I disagree with that. Remember when Pelley came in at the start of the year, and it was championships, and not one championship, it's multiple. We have this, that, and the other thing. And this first year under his stewardship has not been anything to write home about. So I think it is a little bit of a justification letter. When Jeff Gorton sent out that first letter, what was it, Dregs? Maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I saw him at the World Championships that year, and we were on this really long escalator. I'm trying to think if it was in Copenhagen but anyway, and I said, geez, I hadn't met him before. And I said, I like that letter you sent. He goes, well, we'll see if it's the right thing or not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I think being upfront was really good. And they were on that path. They were rebuilding, which is what he said in the letter. And then Gorton got his legs cut out from underneath him and he got fired. And then they changed into this different direction. And now Chris Drury sends out basically a similar letter to that one 6 years ago or whatever it was. It's the same letter. It's just they moved a couple of pieces. It's like they chat GPT'd the thing and moved some pieces around on it. So I don't know. I like the letter if it's open enough that the fans get some information from it, or they can understand a little bit more what the team's general picture is. Otherwise, I think it's almost patronizing to the fans in that, we're doing this, but this happened, and we're doing this, but this happened. Nobody wants to hear that. Just lay out a little bit of a path. You're not going to say we're going to trade this guy and that guy and move this draft pick, and you're not going to do that. But just otherwise, don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, let's shift west. Ray, Joel Quenneville earned his 1,000th NHL win. 1,000 NHL wins. Put him in the same category as Scotty Bowman. I mean, it's incredible, right? When you think of the history of coaching of those two men. It comes with a win over the Oilers Wednesday, 6-5. Leo Carlson had a nice night. Man, is this kid good. 3-point game. The Ducks 10-2 in their last 12. We can talk about Anaheim in just a moment, but first I wanted to hear from Oilers head coach Chris Knoblauch, who cited poor goaltending, especially in the third period for that loss.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't happy with the goaltending, the goals that we gave up, especially in the third period. I didn't like those, and definitely there was other mistakes there, but part of it is you need better goaltending, and tonight wasn't one of his best games.
Knoblauch, Ray, as you know, normally chooses his words carefully, right? He's an honest guy. He answers questions. I was a bit surprised that he was as blunt as that, but that's what we saw. That's what Oilers fans saw. So it's real, but it goes deeper than that too, doesn't it? I mean, they squandered a 2-0 and a 4-2 lead in that hockey game.
Man, this story just gets old, doesn't it? I mean, forever they've been talking about the goaltending. Now that doesn't have anything to do with Jari, like what's happened in the past, but I don't quite get, whenever a coach criticizes a goalie for something really obvious, it becomes this huge talking point. The goalie's part of the team. Sometimes he wins you a game.
Yeah.
And sometimes he just doesn't. Last night was not very good. The scrutiny on the Oilers' goaltending and their defensive play has gone on for a while, right? So they make the trade with Skinner. Basically, they shuffle around deck chairs, and like that was not a move, an elevated move. At best, it was going to be a sideways move, but it's just different. Jari has long had two things that have hampered him. One is injury, which is unfortunate for any player, right? Like they just cannot stay healthy. Number two is he has had the knock, and it's legit, of the softy that at the bad time.
Yeah.
It's part of, I don't know why some guys have it and some guys don't, but they do. And so for Knoblauch to criticize him, what was he going to, after a while, like you can't be full of crap. Everybody's watching the game. They see the goals go in and you're like, ugh, that's deflating. That's brutal. Like how do we overcome that? They score 4 goals. It's not enough. And so eventually, or 5 goals rather, becomes the same story. And for a team that feels like they're at a different level of competition, like they're not trying to make the playoffs. They've been in the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I guess the concern is that, the moves they've made have not turned out. And we've talked a couple of times, Dregs, like we're talking right now about the goaltending, but of the 3 teams that have gone to the finals, or the last 3 years, the 2 teams that went to the finals and this year, this is their weakest team. If you look at where they are, so Corey Perry's not back, Connor Brown's not back, Evander Kane's not back. Their bottom six is a disaster. They went and they brought in Frederick and Mangiapane. Those two have flopped, and that's cost them assets and money. And their bottom six, when McDavid and Draisaitl aren't on the ice, they get outscored 5-on-5 by an enormous margin. Like, how can you hope to be a Stanley Cup contender,
right,
with that makeup? And it's not easy. Like, I get it. It's not easy to fix the problem, but my goodness, it's a problem. And if you're not getting the goaltending to keep the puck out of the net,
right,
then you're playing whack-a-mole. Some nights it's good. Some nights the forwards are good. Some nights the D's good. Some nights the goalie's not good. And it's exhausting to play that way.
So if you're Bowman, what's your top priority? You've already touched goaltending, Do you address depth on D, or do you have to tackle that bottom six situation and just take it between the eyes in an area, give up an asset yet again to look? There's I can give you 15 names of players who are in play right now, and that's on the low end, obviously, with the March 6th trade deadline encroaching here. So what would be your priority as GM there?
It's got to be one or two forwards. They do not have enough past the very top of their lineup. And it would be, I know whenever people critique the Oilers, you start and say, we heard it after the Olympic, McDavid hasn't won. And he's on the ice 21 minutes a game or 22 minutes a game. What's happening in the other 38 minutes? Well, they get caved in. And what's he going to do about that? No. And unless you can fix that problem, I don't think it's going to matter what else Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Zach Hyman, like, what do they have that you're really comfortable with when you get past those guys up front? Like, Henrique has gotten slower and injured and not the player he was.
No.
We went through the guys they lost and the guys they tried to bring in. Like, after a while, you're just chasing your tail there. It's more assets, and you're not looking for a guy to score 30 goals. You're looking for productive, effective minutes from the bottom of your lineup, and because they too are important minutes.
Some news around Connor McDavid, by the way, and you kind of hinted at it, so I'd like to get your perspective on this. Mark Spector asked Connor McDavid if he thought it would be this hard to win a Stanley Cup or Olympic gold. And, Mark used a comparison to Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby among those who have won. And Connor's initial response to the question was, well, that's a nice question, quote, thanks. But then answered and then followed with the acknowledgement that a higher level of hunger to win is part of a process. So while the question may have been framed in a real difficult way, which McDavid acknowledged right off the top of his answer, he did give a decent answer in the bigger picture, right?
I think he does most of the time. I mean, everywhere he goes, and because he's in Edmonton, of course, he's going to get compared to Gratz all the time. And Mark covered the team and that veteran group of guys covered the team when they were the champions a lot of the time and were a very good team a lot of the time. But is it harder than you thought? I don't know. When you were playing hockey in your driveway as a kid, I won the Stanley Cup 50 times. I won it Tuesday and Thursday and maybe Saturday afternoon. I never crumpled into the snowbank and went, and the Bruins don't win, because I was always with Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr was my defenseman. He always passed to me. But I didn't crumple into the snow and say, we almost won. We won every time. Of course it's hard. Of course the guys know it's harder. And when you play 1 year and then 2 years and then 3 years, and you're like, oh my God, the league never steps back. It's relentless. Dregs, I scored 108 goals in my last year of junior. Do you know how long it took me to realize the league was way better than junior? 4 days in training camp when I got sent to the minors. I'm like, there's no room for me. I got to fight to get my way back. So they're looking for one win. Like that's what they were looking for. Now they're looking for a whole bunch of wins. And of the things that must be hard to get your head around is to realize or to acknowledge, hey, maybe we're not quite as good. Connor doesn't need a greater hunger to win. Leon Draisaitl does not need that. Most of the players can only give what they can give. Now, maybe they've got another level deep down that they don't know about, but most of the time, you're getting pretty much what a guy's got to offer. Because you know what? Guys do realize, even if they bitch and moan about it, that this is the best job in the world. And they all know that they're pretty lucky to be there. There are some days they don't understand it. And I know that from my own experiences, but maybe they're just not good enough.
Ooh, you're dialed in. You're recharged. You're refreshed.
I had 3 weeks off.
Recharged Ray.
My kids weren't tired of listening to me. So, and Cammie doesn't listen to me. So,
All right, one more in the Canadian Brewhouse headlines, and then we'll bring in Ryan Rishaug for Ask Ray and Dregs. Artemi Panarin made his debut with the Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday night. A couple of assists for the bread man and a loss to Vegas, which hurts, right? Because LA is trying to get to that cut line. They're not that far off. And Vegas puts a lineup out there that does not include Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, Stone didn't play, Theodore didn't play, Hanifin didn't play. So that's a tough one if you're the Los Angeles Kings to look back on and go, yeah, we probably should have found a way to win that game.
I think there is this point of realism as to what you are. And for the Kings, that would have been a tough one to stomach because of those guys that were out of the lineup. Of course, giving up 5 goals in the third period would be a tough one to stomach as well.
That's wild.
So I think LA's biggest problem when you look at it is they're trying to find a way to score more goals, right? That was why they traded for Panarin. Now they get the terrible break of losing Fiala for the rest of the season. But when they look around the division, Anaheim's young and good. San Jose's young and getting better. Seattle's young, and are they going to get better? Probably in the next couple of years. So the Kings are in a precarious place. And you can say, well, why don't you rebuild? And so does that mean you trade all the guys you have and start again? Does that mean you try to stay competitive while Kopitar's still here? This summer, they're going to pick up Kopitar's cap money. Now you go and chase maybe a free agent or a guy in the last year of his contract that you can maybe entice to come to LA. Like that, they're in a tough spot here.
Yeah. All right, those are your headlines. Thank you to the Canadian Brew House. Ask Ray and Dregs anything is set to fly here. You can send us your questions on DM to X or visit us on the website, rayanddregs.com. We're going to bring in Ryan Rishaug, who's going to roll a few questions out. I can't wait for these. It's been a while, right? It's post-Olympics, so people have been stewing. I'm not sure they've got a whole lot to think about other than the March 6th trade deadline. So what have you got for us there, Ryan?
Well, I want to acknowledge Mario in St. Albert. You guys took the wind out of Mario's sails because he emailed in saying, do you think the greater need in Edmonton is for a forward, a winger, or a defenseman? So was going to ask you that one, Mario. The guys got to it earlier in the show, but he also added at the end, loved the show, was crushing it with my Tim's challenge before the break, went 2 for 3 last night, so off to a good start. So Mario, thanks for the question. The guys got to it, and thanks for playing along with the Tim's challenge. We'll switch over to Greg. You guys talked about Tampa a little bit before. Real simple one. Any trade possibilities you see for the Bolts at the deadline? Not sure they need much, guys, the way they're going. Do you muck about with that, Ray, or do you kind of realize you're peaking at the right time and let her ride?
They're just going to check 21-1 in their last 22 games. So there is a concern about, oh, hey, we've got this great idea, and then you screw the whole thing up because it's, it's like what pretty hard. Like Vasilevsky, he's got a point in 14 straight games. Like that's pretty good stuff. When I look at Tampa, however, like they kind of made a trade acquisition getting Braden Point back. Like that changes their whole team. They don't have Anthony Cirelli back yet. That's going to be another real major factor for them. There is one little area of concern for them. Although Crozier, their young defenseman, had a surgery, so he's out for a while. Somehow, Tampa's accumulated too many NHL defensemen, and it gets into a like a squeeze of roster spots, and you don't want to expose someone to waivers that you just don't want to lose all this depth that you've acquired. But if there's a spot Tampa could add, maybe it's in the bottom of their lineup. But do you really want to sacrifice one of these guys for that spot? Because right now, on their blue line, Victor Hedman plays in their third pair. Right? They play McDonough and Chernak together. Those two guys are like just tied at the hip. Darren Radish, out of nowhere,
like
and
bananas,
an unrestricted free agent. Hello, good timing.
Yeah.
So he's in their second pair. Hedman was right before the break was playing in their third pair, and you're like, man, like how can they make all that fit? I picked Tampa before the season to win the East, but I didn't see this. And it's still so very close. Like, I think you could possibly add a forward, but maybe you just kind of hang on and wait till, Nick Paul comes back and Cirelli's back, and then you get your team back. They're very, very good.
Yeah, and I fully agree, but acknowledge that Julian Breezeball is among the very best when it comes to the trade deadline and just finding a piece or pieces. And, he's also in a perfect situation where when he gets full health, he's not dealing from an area of weakness. He's dealing from an area of strength. So he's a manager who can sit there until 2 p.m. Eastern on March 6th and have some loose offers out there, probably low end offers for good players where, the team that's selling all of a sudden goes, all right, well, I guess that's the best we're going to get. So we might as well send this player to Tampa Bay. Brisebois is as good as anyone, maybe even the best in the league when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Dregs, quick question. The new rules, they come into effect for this playoff, I believe, right? That you have to file a cap compliant roster for each game. Does that change salary, the way salary wise? So it's just so people understand, it's just for the 20 guys in the lineup that night. Yeah. You have to be cap compliant. Does that change the way teams are able to acquire players?
It does, because in addition to that, let's say you've got a player who, historically Tampa Bay is taking advantage of this, right? The Vegas Golden Knights have taken advantage of that injured player coming back. Like Dallas, for instance, is in one right now trying to figure out if Tyler Seguin is going to be able to come back for the playoffs or not. Well, it's a big deal because that money, a good portion of it has to be applied to that playoff cap now. So any players that you're bringing in, for sure, that's going to be considered by the general manager. It has to be in dancing through the gymnastics of a salary cap in the postseason.
All right, moving on. Kind of an interesting one here from Brooks Friedman. Says, Ray and Dregs, thank you so much for the pod. I listen to every show. 40 years ago this week, my dad took me to an amazing doubleheader at the Hartford Civic Center. In the afternoon, Rays Whalers lost to the Blues 8-2. Ferraro was -3. Followed by a nightcap. A nightcap of that year's NBA champion Celtics beating the Pacers. Between games, I met Ray and some other Whalers at the Jewish Deli in the mall and they were so friendly and welcoming. Just wanted to share that memory of an unusual NHL, NBA
nice.
doubleheader. And thank you guys for all the great content from Brooks Friedman. Ray, do you remember that -3 night way back when?
Oh, that would have that first year there would have been a few of those. I'll tell you that. We were 8-2, man. What a great afternoon. And by the way, the deli he's talking about was exceptional. And so you could come after the game, right? You're like, hey, what are you guys going to do? We're going to go to Chuck's Steakhouse, which was up in the mall. So you'd ride the elevator from the arena, ride the elevator though, up to the mall. And it must have been because it was early. We said, hey, let's go to the deli instead of Chuck's that day. And the crazy part about that, just think of this. The Celtics used to play 4 home games a year in Hartford. Could you imagine today an NBA team saying, I'm going to take 4 of my home games and play them in a city 2.5 hours away?
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy to think about that they were trying to grow the width of their fan base. Like, isn't that, it's just wild.
The players
to think
wouldn't
about
do it. We're not going 2.5 hours. Forget it. We're not doing that.
I will tell you, here's a little side story here. So the Bruins and the Whalers had this great rivalry. Well, we thought it was a great rivalry. The Bruins looked at us like we were their little brothers, right? Like we were just a pain in the ass. So where the bus used to park, it had to go underneath the Civic Center, and the bus would park for the team. Well, at some point, somebody decides to block the exit with their car. So the Bruins team bus can't get out. Mike Milbury's the coach. And there was some kind of confrontation, a broken windshield. It got messy. The police were there because the Bruins couldn't get their bus out of the Civic Center.
That's amazing.
And you're like, we heard about it the next day, and we're like, oh boy, I wonder who that was. One of our fans said, "Screw you" to the Bruins, and wouldn't let them out.
Love it. Well, nice to know that even on a -3 afternoon, Ray, you were still in a good mood and welcoming fans and shaking hands and being the cordial fella that
happy
you were.
To be in the league,
you'd given
man.
up.
Oh, happy to be in the league at that point. I was just like,
all right, last one here. A little inside ball, a little behind the scenes in our media business here from Emily in Denver. It was interesting watching the host analysts from competing networks working together at the Olympics, a rare blend of different personalities. My question is, during the season and playoffs, are you all buddies behind the scenes? Do you go for dinners and drinks when you're on the road together, or is it pretty competitive and you stick with your own team? Ray, as someone who has worked for a few different networks, you must know everyone pretty well. Are there lines you don't cross because you're competitors? Always find that fascinating behind the scenes and wondered what it's like. Thanks for all your work on the show. Can't wait for the playoffs. Dregs, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different between the analysts and those of us who work in studio and our beat reporters like yourself, right? I think the number of general managers meetings that we've covered in Florida, where you've got the media there en masse, the hockey media, we're cordial, we're friendly, we don't mind joking around with one another in the hallways as we're waiting for the meetings to break up. Are we meeting for dinner as rival networks? No. Are we able to have a cold, refreshing beverage after said dinner before retiring for the night? Sure. But most of us aren't planning social events with one another between Sportsnet and TSN.
Yeah, I can't remember too many dinners on the road that I've had with other analysts. And I think that's because you're in your own little group, and you kind of go eat with the group you travel with. Now I've gone many times for dinner with Panger, with Darren Pang or Eddie Olczyk, or the guys that I would come across maybe once in a while. But generally speaking, if I'm doing a game, somebody else isn't. Like there's not. when the Leafs, for example, Leafs Regional and the TSN guys in particular, when they're in a city, I go for dinner with them for sure. I worked for a dozen years with those guys. A lot of times I get into a city, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. You get into a city at 6:00 at night, you go eat with the guys that you traveled with, and you're back in your room. And post game, I'm not around other networks that, like, we go in and do a game and we're the people that are there, and then we leave. At the finals with or the Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals, there's one television crew that's there doing the game because it's a national game. And so it's funny, I never really think of it as gee, I wonder why that doesn't happen. Why don't we eat or go for dinner with those guys? Now, if you two cheap buggers were in town, I would expect that I would get a phone call. Now, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but
you travel so much, it's tough to nail you down.
But when we were at the finals, I have to say Ryan worked hard to get a dinner organized. He really did. And the day that we thought it was going to work, he said, "Hey, look, we can go play golf." I don't know if you remember this, Ryan. He said, "We can go play golf." And I was like, "Nah, the weather looks kind of lousy." And you guys got deluged. It was like, do you remember that?
So hold on.
In Edmonton.
Let me interject here. So Ryan was on assignment for TSN and playing golf.
No, this was in Edmonton. Oh. In the 2-day off day between games.
Okay. No, I was just checking. I wasn't sure.
You weren't on the Cup final crew, Dregs. You got left behind there, so you wouldn't recall where it was.
It's happened a couple of times of late where I just don't make the cut. I get it. I understand. Yeah.
Oh man, I do remember Ray.
You came into the restaurant and you guys looked like you had just taken a shower. We're like, "Hey, how's the golf?"
Absolutely, just absolutely drenched. If I recall, though, upper management at Rev Media did buy that dinner. If I recall properly, I think there was a management credit card came out.
They did, and the one thing this has been really fun for me is so I work with a bunch of guys and ladies that are American, and so they come to Canada and everything's so new for them, and they're like, they haven't done this or haven't tried this restaurant or whatever it is. So I walk in to meet my producer and our stats guy for a beer before dinner, and they're watching a CFL game, and they're like, "What is going on here? Why did they get a point?" I go, "Well, yeah, they kicked it through the end of the end zone." And they could not get their head around that there was a 55-yard line.
That's just good times.
It was so fun. And they're like, "When he throws it to the sideline, it's so far." And I'm like, "Yeah,
that's awesome."
So we had some fun with that.
All right, that was Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, and certainly encourage people to send us an email, hit us up on X. DMs are open as well, so always love when people are wanting to know hockey-related, otherwise related questions. Always great participation, and we thank everybody, fellas. We'll see you next week.
All right, Ryan.
Thanks for joining us, Ryan. Go have some pasta. I'm sure you want more carbs.
Gonna go grab a nap. Little nap is due this time.
All right, Ray, we've got to get you on your way. But just a reminder, we've got the Tim's Hockey Challenge. Do not forget to submit your selections for tonight. I think, it's only 3 picks. I don't know why it's so difficult to remember who I picked, but I went with Leon Draisaitl. I think I went with Matthew Nyes in the 2-hole and Logan Stankoven. Number 3.
I thought you were going to say Logan Stanley. I'm like, "Oh, is this a Zuby pick?"
Jordan Spence is my 3rd pick. All right, buddy. Have a good game and safe travels back.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys soon. Everyone, thanks for listening.
You bet. Thank you to our sponsors who continue to support the Ray and Dregs podcast. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Thank you. And thank you to the Canadian Brewhouse. Until next week, have a great weekend and stay safe, everybody.